So all that stuff on the Borg cube with Spork and his sister who is on Earth, and yet she's able to send transmissions there and berate her little baby brother. Also reminds me of Discovery. All of that is so terrible. This is also melodramatic. It's all like a soap opera. Part of it is on a Romulan cube for some reason, and the other one is about Picard playing detective but not actually doing anything, letting his Romulan servant do all the work. And there's also a contradiction of the use of transporters, because we see that they get beamed into that apartment. So that implies that you can actually transport on Earth if you have enough transporter credits. I guess it's possible. And yet later in this episode, he goes to meet Raffi, and he takes a shuttle cab to get there. And yet she's apparently on Earth, because remember he was asking for a warp ship, and now he's looking for someone else with a ship. So I'm guessing this is still all on Earth. So why couldn't he simply transport there? Why did he have to take a space cab, which looks like the shuttles of Discovery, which is something I talked about a lot of times. I don't want to repeat it, that it makes no sense. And also, you know, since those shuttles were warp capable in Discovery, this made me really confused in this scene, because I was wondering, wait, is this still on Earth or is this another planet? Because if it's on Earth, why didn't he use a transporter like he did earlier to get into that apartment? Why did he need to take a taxi? And so that made me think this is all on a different planet, that he simply took a warp-capable space taxi to get to another planet to talk with this Raffi character. And the planet itself looks like a lot of alien planets we saw in Star Trek. It looks a lot like Vulcan and like Mintaka 3 and like that planet where Kirk was fighting the Gorn. It was all filmed in the same place, so I guess it's a funny reference, but it made me confused in the episode, because I thought to myself, wait, is this an alien planet? Is this Vulcan? Is this Mintaka 3? Is this the planet where Kirk fought the Gorn? And so that made me really confused for a moment, and I'm still confused. I'm still not sure. Maybe this is another planet. And also in the preview for the next episode, we see Picard asking this woman if she knows a pilot, because he needs a pilot for his mission. And I'm like thinking, wait, isn't he a pilot himself? There were a whole bunch of episodes when Picard took the helm and he piloted the ship excellently in all kinds of situations. Now maybe he's out of date, maybe he's too old, maybe he only knows how to work Starfleet technology, and if it's not a Starfleet ship, then it wouldn't be as easy for him, so maybe I can buy that. I guess we'll wait and see next episode. Also, there was a scene in which that other Romulan servant asked Picard, why doesn't he simply ask for help from Riker or Worf or LaForge, who I guess didn't die in that event, because maybe it was the first contact day and that's why Geordi went back home to Earth and that's why he didn't die in that event. So I'm glad to know he's not dead. I guess Beverly Crusher is dead, because that's why he didn't ask her to do that medical exam. He instead asked some doctor from Stargazer. But you know, that was an excellent question by that Romulan. Why doesn't Picard ask for help from any of his old friends from Starfleet? How come that admiral who refused him is the only one he can ask? Does he not have any other friends in Starfleet in high places? It makes no sense. Maybe all of his friends are retired as well. Maybe they all went off to other places. I'm guessing Worf is probably in Klingon politics now, as he's supposed to be, so he probably can easily get him a whole fleet of Klingon ships with cloaking devices. So I think asking Worf would be the most clever move Picard can do. He can simply take a space taxi, go to the edge of Federation space, meet up with a bunch of Klingon ships with Worf on board, and then together they will go on the adventure. That would be a far better show. And you know, Michael Dorn wanted to be back. Michael Dorn wanted to play a captain in a Worf TV show and they didn't let him. So it would be nice to see Worf again. I think, you know, he still looks good. He can still be in shape. Can still play a tough Klingon. That would actually be much more entertaining than what we're getting here. And then Picard says, no, I cannot ask the help of any of these guys. I don't want them to risk themselves for me. So I will want other people to risk themselves for me. So it makes no sense. And you know, Worf, Klingon, would love to risk himself. So he wants to die in battle. So I think Worf would be the most logical choice. I guess they could have spent the scene making up excuses, saying that, oh no, Geordi is in a coma because of that attack in which he survived but is in a coma. Riker is retired, he has a family. I think that's something we will see, because there will be a cameo by Riker with his family, and so that's an excuse. Riker doesn't want to leave his daughter behind and all of that. Fine. And maybe Worf is simply too busy in the Klingon Empire, which became also isolationist. There is no way to contact Worf. If he said something like that, maybe I would be okay with that. But instead he simply is like, no, I don't want to ask any of those guys for help, because that would make too much sense, and that's exactly what the fans want to see. So I want to subvert their expectations, and I don't want to have all those other guys steal the show. I want the show to be only about me, and that's why I will not ask any of those guys for help, and instead they will recruit a much cheaper actors, characters, and they will be younger and edgier and more sexy, and the new audience will prefer that probably. So that's all the reasons for why I will not ask for help from Worf, for example. So this kind of stuff really makes me angry, because it makes me think about what we could have had. The kind of show that we might have had instead of this, which would be much better in every way, including for new audience, but they're too stupid to realize that. Instead they introduced all these bland new characters who are annoying in my opinion, like the so-called handsome Spork, and the new android chick who is not an android in any way. She doesn't know she's an android, she's totally human. And all these nasty admirals and all these nasty secret agents who are like Hydra in Starfleet. And Picard has to seek help from some woman who hates him for some reason, and he will recruit all kinds of criminals against and stuff like that. Can't he simply hire mercenaries? I mean, Picard is pretty rich, right? He has his own lands on Earth, which probably is very expensive to own your own land, which he got in inheritance. He has all those ancient artifacts he gathered, which probably cost a lot of money. And it's something I had a discussion about with someone in the comments when I said, Picard was saying that there is no need for possessions in the future, and then later on they showed that he's a collector of ancient, expensive artifacts. So we talked about that, and we both kind of agreed that Picard probably gave all of that to a museum, and he only kept a replicated copy for himself, and that's why we saw him throwing away one of those artifacts when he left the ruins of the Enterprise D, and he didn't take it with him, and so we kind of both agreed that the real one is probably in a museum that Picard donated it to. But now I'm thinking, wouldn't it be a better idea to keep some of those priceless artifacts to yourself, and this way you could have sold them now and get a bunch of latinum, and then simply buy your own ship with alien mercenaries, and then you can do whatever you want without asking for help or permission from Starfleet. Instead, you don't have any possessions because you believed in communism, I guess, and so now you have to beg people to help you because you don't have any money. So maybe Vash was right all along. Maybe seeking some personal property and personal wealth is actually a good thing, because it will allow you to do good things in the future and not beg for help from the authorities. Federation is evil, Starfleet is evil, you cannot trust them, they are corrupt, they've been infiltrated, and now for a normal free man to accomplish something, he has to beg other people for help because he doesn't have any personal possessions. Right, Picard? So I bet you take back what you said in season 1 of TNG. Actually, in that very same episode, he was proven to be incorrect, because that guy he was talking with was saying, it was never about possessions, it was about power, because I should be dead, but I'm not. I was able to buy my way into the future and to cure all my diseases and all of that, and he was actually right. Picard was wrong even in that episode, so personal possessions and personal power is a good thing to have, to accomplish, and you can use it for the greater good, because now apparently it would have been very useful for him to have his own ship and to be able to buy mercenaries and to buy equipment, and not to ask it for from that utopia, which is not an utopia. So anyway, that line of him explaining why he cannot ask help from Worf or Geordi or Riker really annoyed me, because that's exactly what the fans would have wanted to see. Especially Worf, I think. If he showed up with a Klingon ship to help him out, that would be much better than what we will get in this show. Another small kind of goof that a lot of people complain about, which I personally don't really mind that much, is when they show the holograms of the starships in the Starfleet building. They show the Discovery version of the original Enterprise, and then it switched to the Enterprise D, and at least the Enterprise D looks exactly as it should, and so maybe that's why I don't really feel offended by that. I'm more of a TNG guy than a TOS guy. Maybe some of the Constellation class ships were upgraded in this way, but not all of them. Maybe it went back and forth even. The Enterprise from TOS was actually upgraded for the movie, the motion picture, and most fans, I think, were fine with that. Because there was an in-universe explanation, people accepted that and it was okay. So a few more little nitpicks. There was that scene of Picard entering the Starfleet building, and first of all, there are manual doors in the building. And it's not really a mistake, but in season 2 of TNG there was a scene in which Picard and Wesley went down to some planet, and they were going into a building, and there was this door, and then Wesley apparently didn't know how to open it. Both of them kind of stood there for a moment, and then Picard had to show Wesley how to open that door, and then Wesley kind of smiled. So that seemed to indicate that Wesley maybe never saw such doors. He was so used to the sliding doors of starships that he was totally baffled by a normal door. So I always thought that was kind of funny. Now later when Wesley was in the academy, he did have normal doors there. He did know how to open a normal door. And it would be kind of stupid if all the doors were only automatic and you never had any handle or on anything. So that's why I don't really have a problem with seeing people opening doors. But going into a major building, why wouldn't you have sliding doors there? So it's still a little bit strange simply for this scene specifically. Even if it was today taking place, I would say why not install some automatic doors for convenience. And then Picard talks to that ensign who doesn't recognize him. And I don't have a huge problem with that, but then just after that we have that scene with the Admiral, and she said that everybody in the galaxy saw that interview that Picard just made. And I remember thinking, wait, that guy in the reception didn't see it because he didn't recognize Picard. And so you're way overreacting saying that everybody saw that, which obviously isn't true, and that guy didn't even recognize him. So Picard is not so famous, so it's not such a big deal that Picard was on TV bashing Starfleet. Also, there was a funny goof earlier when Picard and the Romulan woman were investigating that crime scene, and then the Romulan woman told Picard that the signal from Dajah's sister came from another planet. It went through a subspace relay, and it's not from this planet, it's from a different planet. And then the camera kind of zooms in on Picard, and he's totally shocked by this news. He's kind of opening his mouth, and he's like, what? He's like totally amazed by that, and he says, are you sure? And she says, yes. And then he's totally like, and I'm like thinking, wait a second, you do know that you live in a galactic federation, right? You do know that it's pretty easy to go to other planets, or I guess maybe in this universe of this show it's not, because apparently without Starfleet he's incapable of going to other planets. He needs to beg other people to join him to get a ship and a pilot, even though he himself is supposed to be a pilot, but maybe he's too old. And this kind of connects to what I was complaining about Picard finding it so hard to leave the planet to get a ship. It's so impossibly hard. He needs to find the right people. So it feels as if people in this show are stuck on Earth. If not for Starfleet, it's very hard for you to get passage to another planet. That's how it feels like on this show. And even getting a transmission from another planet is also amazing. Like, what? From a different planet? So, if all of this was set, let's say in the 22nd century, in the time of Enterprise, when Earth didn't yet have a lot of fast ships, and it was very hard to get to another planet, and maybe then one of the only ways to do it is to go to Starfleet, or it would be very, very expensive. The money did still exist in Enterprise, I think that was said specifically. So if all of this was set in that show, I would be fine with that. But this is set in almost the 25th century. This is supposed to be the year 2399. In the show set prior to this, like TNG and Deep Space Nine, it was always said to be very easy for people to travel the galaxy as tourists even. Captain Sisko's father came to visit him once on Deep Space Nine. And Dr. Bashir's dad was working on a civilian transport ship, and it was always talked about as if people can freely travel from planet to planet without any problem, and you don't have to be in Starfleet to get to other planets. And so that's why this scene doesn't make any sense, and it's kind of unintentionally funny even, because he overreacted so much to hear that she's on another planet. I think if I lived in the universe of Star Trek, I would be more surprised to find out she's on the same planet than on other planets, because chances are much higher for her to be on one of the other planets. So this scene is totally ridiculous, and it's kind of unintentional comedy, and I will probably make a few parody edits and recuts of this episode. I'm trying to keep them short because, copyright strikes and all of that. I don't want to lose my other channel. So I'm going to keep all the spoofs pretty short for now. Maybe later on I will connect them into an elaborate story. At least we can maybe salvage some comedy out of the show and to have some kind of entertainment from that. And so I will definitely be doing that on my other channel. So check out all the links in the description. So my final score for this episode is 2 out of 10. It was mostly terrible. It had a few neat ideas, a few interesting things that if developed properly they might be good in the long run. Maybe Picard will fix all this corruption, he will expose all these infiltrators, and he will be a hero in the end again, and he will save the Federation, and then people will listen to him. Suddenly that Admiral will apologize to him. Maybe in the end of the day, if they do it right, maybe I will say, okay, this wasn't so bad. But for now, I thought this episode was absolutely terrible. Even just as a show in general, not even as a Star Trek show, which this definitely isn't. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. They're not exploring anything, they're not meeting anything new, there's no new science fiction ideas except some silly gadgets which are like magic and are unbelievable. And there's even a line by Picard in which he says that he doesn't like science fiction, and that also made me facepalm, because how can you say such a thing about a character like Picard? I mean, this felt like Patrick Stewart talking, and not Picard. And you know, Patrick Stewart did say in a lot of interviews that he actually didn't like science fiction, and he didn't even watch his own show, he didn't watch any of the other shows of Star Trek. And here we have Picard saying that, and that makes no sense. Picard was a scientist, he was in Starfleet because he wanted to go out and explore the universe, and he was fascinated by all the science fiction-y things, which I guess were not fiction, they were scientific for him. So he was basically living science fiction. So how can he say he doesn't get it when he was directly, personally dealing with that on a daily basis, all the science fiction-y topics which were predicted in all these old books? Now we can say because all these books are old, that for him it's not really science fiction, for him it's just kind of the past for him, but he should still find it interesting to see how people kind of predicted the same things that did end up happening for him in reality. So how can he say he doesn't get it? So I don't get it how they wrote that line in and thought it's okay. I really don't get it why the main character of a science fiction show says that he doesn't get science fiction. It's just totally illogical to me, and it shows that Patrick Stewart is just playing himself in the show. He's not trying to be Picard, and it's just terrible in my opinion. So final score is 2 out of 10, and the only reason it's not 1 out of 10 is because of that scene with the androids, which was creepy and strange, but at least it was interesting. At least I want to see where this was going. So that's the reason it's not 0. That's why I give it 2 out of 10. The rest of the episode, a lot of it was nasty stuff, or all kinds of melodramatic filler, all kinds of characters that I don't care about and don't remember their names, like Spork and all these other guys. I just find it even worse than Star Trek Discovery, and I don't believe I will ever hear myself say that. So this is a great disappointment for me. So that's all I have to say about it for today. Let me know what you think, and we can talk about it in the comment section below, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.